I watched through the baby monitor as my wife walked into my aging father's room and whispered, "I hope you die soon. Your son needs to stop wasting time taking care of you, you're holding us back." My father was too weak to reply. I got angry and pretended I didn't know anything. Last night she was outside my apartment, screaming at my window. The look on her face on the door cam was priceless. So I'm sitting here at 3 a.m. with a glass of whiskey, trying to wrap my head around what I heard yesterday. My hands are still shaking when I think about it. Going to try to get this all out because I honestly have no idea what to do next. Some background: my dad, Warren, 79, moved in with me and my wife, Megan, 35, about 8 months ago. I'm 37, been married to Megan for 6 years. Dad's got pretty advanced heart failure after a lifetime of working with his hands. Doctor says it could be weeks or months, hard to tell with these things. Dad used to be this larger-than-life guy who could build anything. Now he needs help getting to the bathroom. It's been rough watching him deteriorate. We converted our home office into a bedroom for him on the main floor, got one of those adjustable hospital beds and everything. At first, Megan seemed supportive. She even suggested we take him in rather than sending him to a facility. Said it was the right thing to do. But over the last few months, I've noticed her getting more distant, more irritated by little things. Rolling her eyes when I mention needing to reschedule plans because Dad's having a bad day. Making comments about how much time I spend with him. And I get it, man, it's not what she signed up for. Caregiving is hard, we're both stressed. We've got Arlene, who comes in a few days a week to help out, but it's still a lot. Last week, Dad had a really bad episode, his oxygen dropped, and we almost had to call an ambulance. Scared the hell out of me. After that, I set up this baby monitor thing in his room. Just a simple video monitor so I could keep an eye on him from the living room or kitchen without constantly barging in and disturbing him. Nothing fancy, just gives me some peace of mind. Yesterday, around 2 p.m., I was in the garage fixing some shelves, had my phone in my pocket with the monitor app. Dad was napping, and Megan had just gotten home. I didn't think much of it until I heard her voice through the monitor. At first, I thought she was just checking on him, but then I heard what she was saying. My blood went cold, dude. She was standing over his bed, thinking he was asleep, telling him she hoped he'd die soon so I could stop wasting time taking care of him. Said he was holding us back, said our lives had been on pause ever since he moved in. Said she was tired of playing nurse to an old man who couldn't even recognize when people were being fake nice to him. The worst part, my dad wasn't even fully asleep. I could see his eyes open slightly, but he was too weak to respond. Just lying there having to listen to this woman, my wife, wish death on him. I almost stormed inside right then, almost, but something in me just froze. I sat there in the garage, staring at my phone screen, watching this person I thought I knew reveal who she really is. She left the room after about 2 minutes. Dad just closed his eyes again. I could see a tear roll down his cheek before he turned away from the camera. I don't think I've ever felt rage like that before in my life, but I didn't confront her. Instead, I saved the recording, thank God the app has that feature, and went back to working on the shelves like nothing happened. Came in an hour later, kissed her hello, ate the dinner she made, watched some stupid show on Netflix. The whole time I'm looking at the stranger across from me thinking, who are you? How long have you felt this way? Have you said these things to him before when I wasn't listening? It's been nearly 36 hours now, I still haven't said anything. Last night, I barely slept, just lay there next to her wondering how many other things I've missed. This morning, I checked the monitor recordings from the past week, found 3 other instances of her going into his room when she thought no one was around. Once telling him he was a burden, once complaining about the medical bills. Even though his Medicare covers almost everything and he's got savings he's using for the rest. And once just sighing loudly and adjusting his blankets with this look of disgust on her face. My dad never said anything back to her, not once, and he never told me, probably trying to protect me or avoid causing problems. I called my brother, Christian, this afternoon while Megan was out. He lives in Colorado, hasn't been able to visit much because of his kids and work, told him everything. He was ready to drive out here and throw Megan out himself. I had to talk him down. The thing is, I don't know what to do. Part of me wants to confront her immediately, show her the videos, tell her to pack her bags and get the hell out of our house. But another part of me wants to be smarter about it. We've got a joint account, the house is in both our names. If I blow up right now without thinking things through, it could get ugly fast. And the last thing my dad needs is more stress and drama. Christian thinks I should talk to a lawyer, get my ducks in a row before I do anything. He's probably right, but it's killing me to look at her and pretend I don't know what she said. Killing me to watch her fake smile when she brings dad his medication. I keep thinking about the promises I made 6 years ago, for better or worse, in sickness and health. Guess those vows only apply to us, not to family members who need care. The worst part is remembering how she was the one who suggested he move in with us. Was that just for show? Did she think it would only be for a few weeks? Or was she hoping he'd go quickly? The thought makes me sick. Dad's noticed something's off. This evening he asked if everything was okay between Megan and me. I lied and said we were fine, just stressed with work stuff. He looked at me for a long time, then said, "You're a good son, Nelson, don't ever let anyone tell you different." Almost lost it right then and there. Lorraine from next door stopped by today with some soup. She's been checking in regularly since Dad moved in. They've become friends, weirdly enough. She took one look at my face and asked what was wrong. I made up some excuse, but I'm pretty sure she didn't buy it. I've started looking at one-bedroom apartments nearby, just in case things go south fast, somewhere Dad and I could go temporarily until I figure out next steps. The thought of uprooting him again breaks my heart, but staying here with her feels impossible. Tomorrow I'm meeting with a lawyer during my lunch break, going to find out what my options are. I've already moved most of the recordings to a secure cloud storage and sent copies to Christian as backup. Part of me still can't believe this is happening. Like, how do you go from planning a future with someone to hearing them wish death on your father? How did I miss whatever resentment was building up in her? Was it always there? I've been extra attentive to Dad today, sat with him watching his favorite old western, brought in his favorite meal from that diner down the street. He keeps giving me these looks, like he knows something's up, but he's not pushing. I don't know what's going to happen next. All I know is that I can't unhear what she said, can't unsee the look on her face when she was standing over him. And I know I can't forgive it. So that's where I'm at, sitting in my garage at 3 a.m., scrolling through divorce articles on my phone while my wife sleeps inside. Trying to figure out how to protect my dad and myself from someone I thought I knew. Any advice would be welcome, especially from anyone who's dealt with something similar, though, to be honest. I'm hoping not many of you have heard your spouse wish death on your parent. First of all, thanks for all the messages and advice on my last post, didn't expect it to blow up like that. I've been reading every comment and appreciate the support more than you know. It's been a hell of a 2 weeks. So I met with the lawyer like I said I would. Turns out the recordings are completely legal in my state since it was in my house and I had legitimate reason to have the monitor, caring for my dad. That was the first bit of good news I'd had in days. The lawyer laid out my options pretty clearly, and man, hearing someone else confirm that what Megan did was beyond fucked up helped me realize I wasn't overreacting. She walked me through the divorce process, told me to start separating finances ASAP, and suggested I get more evidence if possible without being obvious about it. When I got home that day, Megan was acting like everything was normal, making dinner, asking about my day, talking about some home renovation show she wanted us to watch later. The whole time I'm just nodding and thinking about the horrible stuff she said to my dad. The disconnect was surreal. That night, I checked the baby monitor recordings from when I was gone, nothing. But it made me wonder if she was only doing this when she thought no one was listening. So I set up a few more cameras around the house, one in the living room hidden in a bookshelf, one in the kitchen stuck between some cookbooks, paranoid maybe. But I needed to know what I was dealing with. Meanwhile, I started quietly getting my shit together, opened a new bank account at a different bank, transferred half our savings. Lawyer said this was important to do before filing anything. Ordered a new credit card, gathered important documents like birth certificates, the deed to the house, insurance papers, basic divorce prep, 101 stuff. The next revelation came when I was backing up some photos from our shared tablet. Found text conversations between Megan and her friend Carrie where she was complaining about my dad. Called him the walking corpse, said she was tired of our house smelling like death and old man, complained that I was spending too much time with him instead of focusing on her. The messages went back months, long before she started the baby monitor comments. One text from 3 weeks ago really got me. I married Nelson, not his dad. I didn't sign up to be a caregiver for a dying old man. He needs to choose me or his father. I guess she made the choice pretty easy. Dad was having more good days than bad that week, which was a small blessing. I arranged for Arlene to come an extra day each week, told her privately what was happening, and she agreed to keep an eye out for any weird behavior from Megan. Arlene's been amazing through all this. She genuinely cares about my dad, brings him homemade food sometimes, sits and listens to his stories from when he was young. Then last Friday, I told Megan I needed to go out of town for work, said I'd be gone from Saturday morning until Monday night. She immediately perked up, first time I'd seen her genuinely excited in weeks, asked if Arlene could stay with Dad for the weekend so she could have some me time. I said sure, already knowing what my actual plan was. I packed a bag, made a show of getting ready to leave, kissed her goodbye Saturday morning, drove around the block. Parked my car at Lorraine's house, she's in on the plan now too, and walked back through the woods behind our property. There's this small shed in the back corner that's got electricity. I set up camp there with my laptop connected to all the cameras. Felt like some low-budget surveillance operation, but it worked. Didn't have to wait long. About 2 hours after I left, Megan went into Dad's room. Arlene had stepped out to grab some groceries. Dad was awake, watching TV. The shit that came out of Megan's mouth, dude, I won't repeat all of it. But she basically told him she was counting the days until he was gone, said she had big plans for that room once he was out, said she was tired of playing nice. The whole time, Dad just looked at her with this sad expression, like he wasn't even surprised when she left. He just closed his eyes and lay there for a while, didn't even keep watching his show, just stared at the ceiling. That broke me more than anything she said. I kept watching through the day. She made a bunch of phone calls, friends, her sister, telling them how relieved she was to have a break from the death watch, laughing about how she finally had the house to herself. Called one of her friends and said she was thinking about going through Dad's things to get a head start on clearing out his junk. Around 8 p.m., she started drinking wine, a lot of wine. Then she did something I didn't expect. She went back into Dad's room. By this point, Arlene was back and in the kitchen making his evening meal. Megan sat on the edge of Dad's bed and started talking to him in this fake sweet voice, asking if he needed anything, if he was comfortable. Then she leaned in close and whispered something the camera didn't pick up, but Dad's face said it all. I'd seen enough, texted Arlene to find a reason to go into Dad's room. She did, and Megan immediately backed off, left the room like nothing happened. Sunday morning, I decided to end this, had all the evidence I needed, plus I was getting tired of sleeping in a shed with spiders. I waited until Arlene arrived for the day, then walked in the front door like I'd just gotten home early. The look on Megan's face, pure shock mixed with something else, guilt, fear, not sure. She recovered quickly though, asked why I was back so early. I said the trip finished up faster than expected. We had this weird normal morning, breakfast, coffee, small talk. She had no idea what was coming. Around noon, I asked if we could talk, sat her down in the living room, started by asking how things had been with Dad while I was gone. She gave me this whole song and dance about how they'd had a nice time, watched some movies together, how he seemed to be doing better. Then I pulled out my phone and played the video from yesterday. Her face, man, first confusion, then shock, then this cold, hard look I'd never seen before. She tried to explain it away, said I was misunderstanding, said she was just having a hard time and needed to vent. When that didn't work, she switched to anger, started yelling that I had no right to record her, that I was invading her privacy. I just kept playing more clips, the baby monitor footage, the stuff from this weekend. With each video, she got more desperate. Tried to turn it around on me, said I was neglecting her to take care of Dad, that any wife would feel the same way. I told her I wanted her out of the house today, said I'd already spoken to a lawyer and was filing for divorce. That's when she really lost it, started screaming that I couldn't throw her out, that half the house was hers, threatened to call the police. I reminded her that my name was the only one on the deed since we bought it with money from my savings before we got married. The prenup we signed, her idea, ironically, protected my premarital assets, the house was mine. She switched tactics then, started crying, said she didn't mean any of it, was just stressed and saying things she didn't mean, begged for another chance. When I didn't budge, the tears dried up real quick. She called me every name in the book, said I was choosing my already dead father over our marriage, said I'd regret this. I just sat there, weirdly calm, watching this person I thought I knew completely unravel. Called my brother, Christian, while she was upstairs packing. He offered to fly out, but I told him to wait, things were messy enough already. Megan only took some clothes and personal items, said she'd be back for the rest of her stuff with a lawyer. I changed the locks as soon as she left, probably not legal, but at that point I didn't care. The next few days were a blur of lawyer meetings, paperwork, and taking care of Dad. I froze our joint accounts after transferring my half, canceled the credit cards we shared. Contacted the landlord of a property we owned together to redirect the rent payments, changed the passwords on all our shared digital accounts. Word spread fast. Megan's sister called me, furious, until I offered to play the recordings for her. She hung up before I could. Some mutual friends reached out, confused about what was happening. I didn't volunteer the recordings to everyone. Just said we were separating because of irreconcilable differences, let Megan dig her own hole. But a few close friends who I knew would stand by me, I showed them, their reactions confirmed I was doing the right thing. Dad and I had a long talk that night. He admitted Megan had been saying these things to him for months. Said he didn't tell me because he didn't want to come between us, didn't want to be a burden. I reassured him he was never a burden, that taking care of him was the most important thing I could be doing right now. We both cried a bit, felt good to clear the air. Things were almost peaceful for about a week. Megan stayed with a friend, only communicated through increasingly angry texts about property division. I started looking at apartments for Dad and me just in case things got ugly with the house. Had to be ground floor, accessible bathroom, close to his doctor. Found a few promising options. Then last night happened. I was at home with Dad, eating dinner, when my phone started blowing up with texts from Megan, incoherent, angry walls of text. Apparently she'd gone to access our investment account and found out I'd already separated my half. Then tried to use a credit card that had been canceled. The financial reality of what was happening finally hit her. Around 11 p.m., there's pounding on the door. Check the doorbell camera. It's Megan, clearly drunk, screaming for me to let her in. Dad was already asleep, thankfully. I turned on the porch light and spoke through the doorbell speaker, told her to leave or I'd call the police. That just made her more angry. She started screaming about how I'd ruined her life, how I'd planned this whole thing, how I'd never loved her. The doorbell camera caught it all. Her mascara running down her face, gesturing wildly, occasionally stopping to try the doorknob or pound on the door again. At one point, she pressed her face right up to the camera and just screamed. After about 20 minutes of this, one of the neighbors must have called the cops. They showed up, talked to her for a while, eventually convinced her to leave with them. Officer came to the door, asked if I wanted to press charges for disturbance or trespassing. I declined, just asked for an incident report for my divorce file. So here we are, divorce papers officially filed yesterday, temporary restraining order in process after last night's performance. Moving plans accelerated. Dad and I will be in a new place by next week, somewhere Megan doesn't know about. The apartment manager is holding it for us even though we can't move in for a few days. Dad's taking it all surprisingly well, says he feels lighter now that everything's out in the open. Even joked this morning that he's outlived my marriage. Dark humor runs in the family, I guess. I'm not going to lie, there are moments I miss the person I thought Megan was. 6 years is a long time. But then I remember her face when she stood over my dad's bed, and any doubt evaporates. Guess the moral of the story is, you never really know someone until you see how they treat the most vulnerable people in your life. We'll update again when there's more to share. The look on her face on that doorbell camera really was priceless though. It's been almost 3 months since my last update, and I figured I owed you guys the finale to this whole saga. To be honest, I've been putting off writing this because it meant revisiting some pretty dark moments, but I'm in a better place now. After the doorbell camera meltdown, things escalated in ways I couldn't have predicted. Dad and I moved into that ground floor apartment I mentioned, nothing fancy, just a 2-bedroom with wider doorways and a walk-in shower that works with his mobility issues. The property manager was cool about expediting everything once I explained the situation. Didn't even charge the pet deposit for Dad's old cat, Samson, who's somehow still kicking at 16. The first week in the new place was rough, our routines were all messed up, the kitchen was half the size we were used to. So making meals was like playing Tetris with cutting boards and pans. Dad kept getting disoriented at night, forgetting where the bathroom was, and of course, the dishwasher started leaking on day 3, welcome to apartment life, I guess. But we adjusted, Arlene found a better route to our new place and still came 3 days a week. Lorraine from our old neighborhood even drove over once a week to play cards with Dad, said she missed their chats. Meanwhile, Megan was busy making her life, and mine, a complete dumpster fire. It started with the social media campaign. She posted this long, rambling thing on Facebook about how I'd abandoned her and was trying to destroy her financially. Claimed I'd planned the whole thing for months, tagged mutual friends, classic Darvo stuff, deny, attacked, reverse victim and offender. But here's where her plan backfired spectacularly. Remember Carrie, her friend who she'd been texting all that awful stuff about my dad too? Apparently, Carrie's grandmother had just moved in with her family because of Alzheimer's. The caregiver comments hit too close to home. She actually messaged me privately, asking what really happened. I didn't want to get into mudslinging. But I did send Carrie one short clip, just enough to show what Megan was really like. Carrie went radio silent for about 2 days, then she posted a vague but pointed comment on Megan's rant. There are always 2 sides to a story. Sometimes the truth is in what gets recorded, not what gets posted. That one comment set off a chain reaction. People started DMing me, asking questions. Some of Megan's support squad quietly stepped back. Not everyone abandoned her, she still had her ride or dies who believed whatever she told them, but the tide was definitely turning. The divorce proceedings were moving forward, slower than I'd hoped, but steady. My lawyer was confident about the outcome given the evidence and prenup. But Megan wasn't going down without a fight. She started showing up at my workplace, just standing in the parking lot, watching. Security eventually told her to leave, but it was creepy as fuck. She'd send these long, incoherent texts at 3 a.m., alternating between begging for another chance and threatening to tell everyone what I did to her. I documented everything, adding it to what my lawyer was calling the receipts folder. Then came the financial reality check. The prenup protected most of my assets. But we still had to divide what we'd acquired during the marriage, the rental property, some investments, household items. Her spending habits over the years meant she had way less saved than she thought. And she'd quit her job 6 months ago to focus on her side business that never really materialized. About a month after we separated, I got a text from her that just said, "I can't pay my credit card this month." The one with her name, only that she'd maxed out at some point, not my problem. The most surprising development was with my dad. I'd been so worried the move would accelerate his decline, but the opposite happened. Once we were away from all that tension I hadn't even fully recognized until it was gone, he started having more good days than bad. His doctor was cautious but said sometimes removing stress can have surprisingly positive effects on heart patients. No miracle recovery or anything, he still has good and bad days, still needs help with basic tasks. But he started telling his old stories again, started asking Arlene to make his favorite foods instead of just eating whatever was put in front of him. One morning, I found him sitting on our tiny patio, just watching birds at the feeder I'd set up. He looked over at me and said, "You know, I thought I'd hate leaving the other house, but it's peaceful here." That alone made every headache with Megan worth it. Christian flew out to visit for a week. We hadn't spent that much time together in years. He helped set up Dad's new space, installed some safety bars in the bathroom, built a ramp for the small step at the front door. We stayed up late talking about stuff we'd never really discussed, how Mom's death had affected us differently, our relationships, our regrets. The kind of conversations that only seem to happen after life blows up in your face. The divorce court date was set for a Thursday in early June. My lawyer advised me to dress conservatively, speak only when spoken to, and let the evidence do the talking. I barely slept the night before, kept running through scenarios in my head. What if the judge didn't think it was a big deal? What if Megan somehow turned it around? The morning of court, I got a text from my lawyer, "Check your email now." Megan had offered a settlement, a surprisingly reasonable one. She would take only 25% of the joint assets acquired during marriage instead of the 50% she was entitled to. In exchange, I would agree to not play any of the recordings in court or share them publicly. My first instinct was to refuse. After everything she'd done, she deserved to have everyone hear those recordings. But my lawyer pointed out that this would get me exactly what I wanted, a clean break with minimal financial damage, without dragging my dad's private suffering into a public courtroom. I accepted. Papers were signed that afternoon. Just like that, after months of chaos, it was legally over. When I told Dad about the settlement, he nodded slowly and said, "She was afraid of people knowing who she really is." I think he was right. For about 2 weeks, things were quiet. I started to think maybe we could all move on. Then I got a call from Lorraine. Megan had shown up at our old house, clearly drunk, trying to get in with her old key, which didn't work since I changed the locks. When she couldn't get in, she started yelling at Lorraine, who was outside watering plants. Lorraine, who is like 70 but takes no shit, told her the house was being sold and she needed to leave before she called the police. Megan apparently broke down crying right there in the front yard, told Lorraine her life was falling apart. She'd lost her friends, couldn't find a decent job, was staying on someone's couch. I felt a weird mix of satisfaction and pity hearing that, like she deserved consequences, but it was still sad to see someone implode like that. The final confrontation happened last week. I was coming home from grocery shopping, arms full of bags. When I spotted her sitting in her car across from our apartment building, she'd finally found where we lived. Great. I set the groceries down by the door and walked over, asked what she was doing here. She looked rough, hair unwashed, dark circles under her eyes. For a second, I saw flashes of the woman I'd married, and it was disorienting. She said she just wanted to talk, said she'd been doing therapy, realized how toxic she'd been, wanted to apologize to my dad. I told her that wasn't happening, that he was finally doing better without her negative energy around. She switched tactics then, saying she was struggling financially. Couldn't I help her out after 6 years together, just alone until she got back on her feet? I almost laughed, told her the settlement was her help, that she could have fought for more but chose privacy over money. That decision had consequences. Her face changed then, the mask dropped completely, started saying I'd ruined her life, that I'd turned everyone against her, that I'd blown things out of proportion. I just stood there watching her spiral, feeling nothing but exhaustion, finally said, "Look, we're done here. Don't come back or I'll file for a permanent restraining order. I've got enough footage from the apartment security cameras now to make that happen." The look on her face when she realized I had yet more evidence, priceless. She started her car and drove off. Haven't heard from her since. Inside, Dad was watching a documentary with Arlene. They both looked up when I came in with the groceries. And Dad immediately knew something was up. He's always been weirdly perceptive that way. Asked what happened, and I told them briefly about Megan showing up that night, after Arlene left. Dad motioned for me to sit with him. He was having a good day, more alert than usual. Said he wanted me to know something important, that watching me stand up for him, for both of us, against Megan had reminded him of his own father. Said it made him proud to see me refuse to let someone mistreat the people I love, even when it would have been easier to look away. Coming from my dad, who's never been big on emotional conversations, this hit hard. We closed on the sale of the old house yesterday. I'm using my portion to pay off the apartment lease for a full year and setting aside money for Dad's ongoing care. The weight that's lifted knowing we have that security is immense. Life isn't perfect now. The apartment's garbage disposal broke last week. Dad had a rough few days where his breathing was bad. I'm still single and not particularly interested in dating anytime soon, but we're stable, we're okay. I've been thinking a lot about what I missed in my relationship with Megan, the red flags I ignored or explained away, the gradual erosion of empathy I didn't notice until it was gone. The way she'd subtly isolate me from friends who weren't supportive enough of her. The constant moving of goalposts, first she wanted marriage, then a house, then for me to change jobs, then for Dad to not be our problem. Nothing I can do about the past, but I'm a hell of a lot wiser about who I let into my life now. So that's the update, not the neat, tidy Hollywood ending where the villain gets some dramatic public comeuppance, just a quiet rebuilding. A father and son eating takeout and watching baseball in a modest apartment, and somewhere across town. A woman living with the consequences of showing who she really is.